Speaking of masses and miracles and all that goes with it, let me go to Eoghan Corry of Travel Extra, who joins me on line 3 today. Eoghan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us today. I see, again, I'm just looking at Qantas, and they've decided they're going to hang up their boots when it comes to flights and that. What is the situation with flight cancellations? 80% of Ryanair flights already cancelled, is that true?
I think the candles have to be lit, and the prayer said, and the fairies alerted for the aviation industry. We had a statement, Kate, the other night from IATA saying there are 700 airlines flying in the world. It could be down to 30 if we struggle through this without somebody coming in, and that usually means a plea for state aid. People who are vehemently against state aid, for example, Carsten Spohr, the CEO of Lufthansa, is actually gone to the German government now looking for state aid. Is a guy who's opposed to it. Most of the flights will be on the ground by Tuesday. Wednesday was the statement yesterday from Ryanair. The CEO was talking to him this morning, and of Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, and he said Sunday. It could be Sunday. It's actually gathering pace as the week goes on. They're mostly what they're doing is repatriation flights, flying out empty and coming back full. We're seeing the major. It's easier to say where is open than is closed. It's north of Denmark is closed, east of Italy is closed, and we're left with even though Spain and France are also in lockdown, as is Italy. Their airspace is open. So we're really dealing with Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Britain and Ireland. He says Britain and Ireland will be all that will be left by the weekend, and that will come into a halt as well. It's very hard to know what decisions will be coming from Westminster, the Dublin government.
And for how long do you reckon will this reduction and elimination go on for?
The other thing that's been happening in the last 2 days is the expected return date is being pushed back. People will be familiar with the Irish lockdown, which, we put all the countries. If you go to your TravelWise app, you look at it now, every single country is a big orange against it, avoid everything except unnecessary travel. That runs out in March 29. The British advisory runs out at April 13, just a week after Easter. That's the proposed European ban as well, which Ireland isn't sure what we're going to do because of the common travel area. We're signing up for that as well. So what we've seen is we pushed that to April the 13th. I noticed the airline change fees went as early as Monday to the end of April, and now people are talking about mid-May. So while obviously nobody can say what's happening, the guys who are making big commercial decisions have to have some sort of date to work to. The general consensus is the week after Easter, and some of them are pushed it to May, and I saw one or two pushing it to June. We have seen the first of the seat sales arrive in the market yesterday. People saying you can book for very, very cheap prices, very, very cheap flights, and they didn't. It was EasyJet, and they didn't block out things like July, August, and Christmas. Any listener that has ever gone into a seat sale knows that they're limited to the times that the schools aren't closed. That's the level of desperation. Airlines are running out of cash. They are flying uncommercial routes, unviable routes. The load factors in Ryanair are down to about 50%, and they're much lower in the traditional Britain to Ireland runs that people do. And what will happen next is that anybody who isn't sitting on a barrel of cash is going to be in trouble. Ryanair happily are sitting on a barrel of cash, but the one thing Michael O'Leary is known for is being pretty ruthless in acting quickly when he's in a crisis, and it will mean that he'll ground the fleet, and I wouldn't be surprised to be all on the ground on Sunday, 300 aircraft on the ground.
And what about the staff in this situation then? Are they just on social welfare then as well?
On social welfare, unpaid leave, there's generally been proposed 8 weeks. Most of the airlines have called in staff and offered them, put them on furlough, to use that American phrase. And
what does that mean?
It just basically means that you're on unpaid leave. I notice 8 weeks as being pretty much the standard across the industry. Some of the airlines are completely closed for business, like Swiss Air, for example, Brussels Airlines, Norwegian have put their staff down, and they're one of the ones in deep trouble. So that's what we'd expect from Ryanair as well, and possibly Aer Lingus. Interestingly, Transatlantic is proceeding as normal. There are 13 airports designated by Donald Trump to accept anybody arriving in the country. That means that they can be tested. And that just means that there are 4 of those airports served out of Ireland are not in that list of 13. They're Hartford and Connecticut, Orlando, Philadelphia and Minneapolis. They're the only flights that have been cancelled as we speak. But I do expect, because demand is way, way down, that the transatlantic flights will be culled. We will probably see them kept open for some sort of so people have to get to and from, even medical personnel, emergency people have to get to and from America. But certainly the number of flights that will be on offer will come down, way, way down by the middle of next week.
So you see Aer Lingus, sorry Eoghan, before I go into what you see, Aer Lingus, how strong are they?
Aer Lingus are well founded. If they were still a standalone airline, they would be in deep trouble. But luckily, Willie Walsh bought them in 2015, and they're now part of IAG. Very strong international airline, a Spanish company. But interestingly enough, they're talking about state aid as well, and British Airways going to the British government. It just shows you how, in the new environment, who actually do you go to? Do you go to the Irish government for Aer Lingus, for the British government for British Airways, and the Spanish government for Iberia? It's very hard to untangle an airline group when you've bought them all together. I wouldn't expect to see either of the 2 major airlines operating out of Ireland close down out of this, but what we could see is a big curtailment in service and capacity cut. And when you have capacity cut, it means prices will float up. The one thing everybody is saying is, when we went through something, the comparisons don't work anymore, but in the earlier phase of this, they were comparing it with 9/11, and they were saying that it took about 6 months, and then you had this huge pent-up demand for travel, which meant that everything got back to normal surprisingly quickly. SARS, everything back to normal surprisingly quickly. Not sure we're in the same situation now. Nobody really knows what situation we're in, but that's what the aviation industry is hoping for.
Finally, from insurance point of view, travel insurance point of view and all, I mean, we're coming into a very busy period heading into Easter where people would have a lot of trips booked. Is there any news on that travel front?
Now you're into a completely new area. Most of the travel insurance companies are facing, they're going to bleed with anybody who has an existing disruption policy will be running to travel insurance to try and get paid, and they're facing claims on a scale they never, in fact, the underwriters never really imagined.
But can you put that claim in though at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely, and the underwriters were pulling out of new policies, but the existing policies still apply. And there is another huge issue. You're actually entitled to a refund for for a flight that either is cancelled or that you can cancel. It's cancelled as a result of a government advisory. And now we have a government advisory from the Irish government: avoid unnecessary travel to every country in the world. So that means that the airlines, who are already cash-strapped because the forward bookings are down to a trickle, are facing huge cash refund demands, and nobody can get through on the helplines. The airlines went yesterday to Brussels to say, we can't face this. We can't cope with this. We're looking for a derogation. 3 points they wanted. The EU 261, they wanted a derogation on COVID-19 cancellations. They also wanted a second one which wouldn't apply under the EU 261 already, and that is when load factors go so low they can cancel flights without having to pay compensation. This is not about refunds. This is about the extra compensation they have to pay. But the third thing they looked for was that they pay not in cash but in vouchers. I noticed a lot of airlines, even in the last 20 minutes, Air Canada came in with a policy that they're going to offer flight credits or vouchers instead of money back. But a lot of the American airlines are doing that. You've got it for 12 months, and if you don't use it in the 12 months, then you get your money. Quite clear what they're doing there is they're lessening the blow of having to pay automatic cash.
They're buying time.
Trying to
hold on to cash,
And the airlines, unless the airlines can buy time on having to hand back cash for fares that we'll see they are facing a dire situation.
All right, Owen, you keep strong, and thank you for joining us. Eoghan Corry of Travel Extra joining us there, and some stark information coming the way as well. It's 9:32.